Hello, everybody. This is Ian Sharp from ATIS. I'm going to moderate the webinar today. Thank you very much for your interest and for joining. So we go to the next slide, please. So the theme today is Release 18, 5G Advanced in 3GPP, and also looking ahead a bit to Release 19. I'm very pleased to have two excellent speakers who are really knowledgeable and experts in 3GPP's work. We have Wanshi Chen from Qualcomm, who is chair of 3GPP RAN working group, and Puneet Jain from Intel, who is chair of the system architecture group in 3GPP. So we'll have Wanshi present first, and then Puneet, and then we'll have a joint Q&A for both presentations. After they've both finished. Feel free to type your questions into the question box during the meeting. So we go to the next slide, please. I'm going to give you just a very short introduction to ATIS. So for those of you who are not aware, ATIS is based in Washington, DC in the US, and we are a ICT standards development organization and industry group. Really looking to develop superior value to the industry and to application users through the use of common standards which allow differentiation between industry actors. And we recognize, the very important role that standards plays in delivering services and cost-effective services throughout the industry. If we go to the next slide, please. Specifically today, we're obviously talking about 5G, something which has been key to ATIS for many years. ATIS is the North American organizational partner in 3GPP, so we represent North American interests in that organization. And a large part of my job is to manage the interface between ATIS and 3GPP. As well as supporting 3GPP's work, we also have a number of 5G related projects within ATIS. You can see some of those on the chart here. A lot of these are around security and specific market features for the North American marketplace. And we also have a major activity looking beyond 5G through the organization that we call the Next G Alliance, which is working to develop North American leadership in the 6G space. So with that short introduction, I want to steal from our presenters, so I will hand you over to Wanshi, who will present on the RAN radio interface and also the RAN system aspects. So over to you, Wanshi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ian. This is Wanshi Chen. I'm going to present the status of 3G RAN Release 18 and beyond. Let's move to the next slide, please. I think some kind of delay on my side. So here's the outline of the presentation. I'll start with the introduction of Release 18 and also the timeline, which we just confirmed in last December. Then we'll take an overall look at all the Release 18 projects in RAN, of the status. And lastly, we'll talk about how we're going to prepare for Release 19. Next slide, please. I think there's some delay on my side. Let me just start. I suppose you guys already see the slides. So here is
the slide update quickly, so I think you can keep talking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think some delay on my side. Sorry, guys. So here the slide just try to show the technology evolution in 5G, starting from Release 15, which is the first release of 5G. Then we had three releases before Release 18, 15, 16, 17, in which we had all the necessary foundation and also expansion to vertical domain to support various use cases. Now, starting from Release 18, we can enter in the second phase of 5G, for which we call 5G-Advanced. Release 18 will be the first release for 5G-Advanced. expected we're going to have at least release 19 for 5G-Advanced, which will further enrich the features, improve the features we have for 5G for more successful commercial deployments. Next slide, please. And these are the foundations of the technical technology areas that we see for release 18. Essentially, for the second phase of 5G, for the first release, it's important for us to have a balanced 5G evolution across these 3 different areas. One is mobile broadband evolution versus further vertical expansion, which is always a very important balance for us. And also, since now we're entering the second phase of 5G, it's also important to look at the needs, not only addressing immediate commercial deployment needs, but also to take a look at this long-term 5G vision. I'm going to present you some projects which are not necessarily addressing the needs immediately, but rather to have a very good study to see how we could further use this study to have actual specification work for commercial deployments in the late phase. We also need to have this device versus network balance in which that we have evolution on both sides, such as new and enhanced devices for network and devices. Okay, next slide, please. And this is the confirmed run release 18 timeline. The reason why it's important to have such a slide is that in the year of 2022, we have been trying very, very hard to go back to physical meetings. We were, I'll say we were quite successful in the sense that although we haven't been able to fully resume face-to-face meetings, but we did have the first face-to-face meeting at the plenary level in June and a working group level in August. And then we have a full face-to-face meetings across all working groups in November last year. So it's quite achievement in my opinion, and it's also very good to not only for meeting efficiency, but also a great opportunity for people to get together again. And these somehow impact the release 18 timeline that we originally devised. Originally, if you can see on these slides, originally the SN1 review freeze is scheduled in March 2024. Now it's postponed by 3 months. And then we also reserved 1 quarter, as shown in these yellow boxes, dedicated to release 18 maintenance to ensure that we still have target the same functional freeze dates, but we want to make sure that the release 18 can be fully stable by using this 1 quarter dedicated to run 1 in Q4 2023 and dedicated to run 2, run 3, run 4 in Q1 of 2024. So that's try to address the impact of the fact that we were not being able to fully resume face-to-face, and also acknowledge the fact that we actually did progress reasonably well. So we try to keep the functional freeze dates, but then acknowledge that we need more time a little bit more time to have things to be more stable. Okay, next slide, please. So these were try to look at the overall status of the projects we have in run. Next slide, please. And this slide try to give you a high-level view of what's being included in run release 18. We have 2 columns here. One is to strengthen the end-to-end 5G system foundation, and the other one is to proliferate 5G to virtually all devices and use cases. And you can see that on the first column we have features with many familiar features like MIMO. In particular, we have the uplink enhancements, which has been showing strong interest by a lot of operators to see the need to enhance uplink. And multi enhancement, mobile IB, smart repeater, duplexing. This is the one project which is in a way to aim for a longer term, and along with the AI machine learning, these data-driven designs. Green networks is also important evolution on the network side, which is try to have a good energy saving on the network side. Then on the second column, where we're going to have this expansion or proliferation of 5G into different devices use cases. You can see XR, which is driven by the glasses, and we have further so-called reduced capability or red cap evolution. And then Starlink is also expanded by including more features and also to have more evolutions. Positioning is also further expanded. Drones, also called UAV, and also satellite, also called NTN, non-terrestrial networks enhancements. And then we also have many other enhancements, including multicast. Next slide, please. So this slide where like I've tried to provide an overview of the projects led by round one, the overall status. It's quite crowded, but just because we have a lot of good projects. I can see that I try to use different colors to represent different I'll say types of projects, some of which are study only. As you can see, like for AI machine learning and for this evolution of NR duplex, so that these are the two study items. This study is a full release study. We're not gonna convert it to work items. Similar also for low power workup signal receiver. So these are the purely study items. We've also had a few items kind of starting from as a work item from beginning. MIMO, Starlink, Courage, and also this DSS and other multi-carrier enhancements. DSS in particular is a very small project. It's already completed in September last year, and the other work item is still ongoing. We also had quite a few projects. We started with a study. Now they are converted to work items. Actually, just converted. 3 of which just converted in last December. One was converted in last September. So for the converted in last year December, you can see this including expanded and improved NR positioning, and also this red cap enhancements that I mentioned earlier to have to address more device types, and this network 107, which specifically networks. So these 3 projects were scheduled to complete study in last December and to convert to work items, and everything for the 3 items have been progressing really well. So we're up to convert them successfully to work items. And also we had these network control repeaters, which was converted already in last September. Next slide, please. So this is the overview of the Run 2 led projects. Also quite a few projects, about 10 projects. Again, similar color coding. We have 9 work items straight from start, and then we also have one interesting project also mentioned earlier is the XR enhancements, starting as a study item, and then in last December we're able to convert it to work item. And one thing in particular that this study is not fully complete for this particular case, just because they have some dependency on the SS side, this feature called the run awareness. So that study will continue until March this year, while the remaining part of the study was already completed, is already converted to work item. So in a way, we're going to have a little bit parallel study and a work item for these particular projects. So all other projects are progressing well. So hopefully things can be done as we planned, according to the timeline we just discussed. Next slide, please. So this is the overview of the Run 3 led projects. We have about I think 5 projects. The last one, the study on the enhancements of resiliency of a GNB-CU, that one was already completed. It's just 1 quarter study, and it wasn't. The conclusion was not to recommend any follow-up of work items, so the study it was complete. And then we have 4 other projects, 3 of which are just the work items. All 3 are more or less continuation from the previous releases. Then we have this AI machine learning on the right side. If you recall earlier, we have the study item for AI machine learning on the radio side. This is the network side machine learning. This was already started in release 17, so this is now been specified as a work item in release 18. Scheduled for 1 year, so it was started in August last year, and then basically try to complete in June next year. So from working group perspective, it's more like 1 year work time to do the specification work. And then we're going to have 6 months right after June 23 until December. We're going to have 6 months to have follow-up study. But then this study try to study for some new user cases to see how we could further utilize machine learning to further improve network performance somehow. Okay, next slide, please. So this, along with the next slide, provides an overview of the Run4 led projects. As you can see, Run4 has a lot of projects. This is one of the working groups that actually been having a very heavy load, and also something we've been trying to address, but it's still a lot of projects you can see. Many of which, of course, are quite small, but still the non-projects is quite large. Again, you can see there's also different colors. We have study items, we have work items. I'm not going to go to individual project one by one, but maybe one thing to mention is this less than 5 megahertz projects, which is right in the kind of in the middle. You have this RP2226.5. So this is the project trying to address some real-world deployments where the spectrum may be less than 5 megahertz, for example, 3 megahertz or 5 megahertz, the kind of range. But the idea is try to use the existing specification with minimum change to support this spectrum allocation. Okay, maybe also move to the next slide to give a quick show of the remaining projects. Again, I'm not going to go through the details, but you can see that we do have quite a lot of projects for Run4. Next slide. Then we have this another project which was just approved in last September, starting from last December, to have this run level project called Ambient IoT. So this is a run level study. We can move to the next slide. So this is a run level study. Essentially, we try to explore these new directions, try to see rely on some ultra low complexity, ultra low power consumption, and of course, it's going to complement to complement to the existing technology we already have. We have Nearby TMTC already specified from IoT days, and we have the red cap, and you guys just saw earlier. That's been further enhanced in release 18, and we already have red cap in 17. So this is another direction we're trying to explore to study what are new use cases, what are the architecture, what's the requirements, all different things, deployment scenarios, and to see whether we should do further study at the working group level and to the possibility also to have some certification work. Okay, next slide, please. So then the question is, how will have 5G evolve in the next in this new decade? We already had quite some good evolution so far, and then apparently at certain points 6G will come into 3GPP, although it's still too early to discuss this point. But we need to do further enhancement for 5G. If you go to the next slide. So we need to further advance 5G to fulfill its full promise. And this slide to show you some areas that have been addressed by 5G standardization, which kind of envisioned from the beginning of 5G days, industries 4.0, bonus XR, to name a couple. So quite a few. I think it's still important to make sure that we further evolve 5G so that we can address either existing user cases better or even further new user cases. So to that end, then next slide, we need to have release 19. So this model is kind of connecting with the release 18 timeline we discussed earlier. So after this release 18 maintenance, for round 1 will be after quarter 4, we'll start release 19 in round 1 starting quarter 1 of 2024. While the round 2, round 3, round 4 work will start 1 quarter later, which will start from the quarter 2 of 2024. And then to get there, we need to have a good preparation. So we'll have the first workshop on release 19 in June. This will be in Taiwan, which was just finalized earlier. And then this will be meeting will have first collection of the information that people have in mind for release 19. Be interested to see how things will be proposed. And then we'll have a first consolidation of all the proposals, focus on round 1, round 2, round 3 in September. And then after that, with all the good discussion, the hope is to approve the package for release 19 for round 1, round 2, round 4, round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4 in December. And then this also be first opportunity for round 4 to see how the proposal can be consolidated. And after that, we're also target to have release 19 package approval for round 4 in March 2024. And of course, there's also a question of how long the release 19 will last. That's something we plan to discuss and hopefully to decide also in March, in the March plenaries. I think that's it from my from presentation. I'll stop here. Ian, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. That was very helpful. So I think we will do the question and answer at the end of the presentation, but as a reminder, you can type questions into the chat, into the question box, and we will see those. Also, I know a number of people have asked, but yes, we will provide these slides after the event. So I'd now like to hand you over to Puneet, who will talk to us about the system aspects in release 18. So over to you, Puneet.
Thank you very much, Ian. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can hear you good.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Next slide. So hello, everyone. I will talk about the system architecture and core network enhancements in 3GPP release 18, and will also briefly describe release 19 stage 1 work on the use cases and the service requirements, and also talk about the associated timelines. Next slide. From the standards perspective, 5G is designed to be both evolutionary and revolutionary. Initially, 3GPP 5G release focused on enhancement for mobile broadband market and its use cases. Release 15 delivered basic NR functionality to meet EMBB and URLLC requirements of 5G technology. Also, all new 5G network was defined using the service-based architecture principle, and several innovative features such as network slicing, enhanced QoS support, network capability exposure, and seamless integration with non-3GPP access network was defined. The release 16 was a continuation of release 15 with an objective to fully address the original 5G vision. It added several features and services for verticals, enterprise, and mission-critical applications. Release 17, which finished in June 2022, provided further enhancements to certain Release 16 features and also added new capabilities and enhancements for enterprise and consumer services alike. Next slide, please. In May 2021, 3GPP officially labeled Release 18 and afterwards as a 5G-Advanced to signal a strong 5G evolution path and to make 5G even more capable. 3GPP Release 18 is the first release of 5G-Advanced. It also is a release with a record number of study items ongoing. At the start of Release 18, 27 study items and 1 work item was approved in SA2. All SA2 study items have been 100% complete as of last month, and normative work is expected to be complete by June 2023. Release 19, which will be a second release for 5G Advanced, has also started. Work is ongoing in SA1 on stage 1 use cases and service requirements, and I'll briefly talk about those in the later slides. Next slide, please. As Release 18 is the first release of 5G Advanced, it expands to market reach of 5G technology by adding new features such as artificial intelligence and extended reality to enable high intelligent network solutions that can support a wide variety of use cases than ever before. At the same time, Release 18 will address the additional requirement from the mobile operators and the verticals, such as EMBB and URLC requirements, public safety mission critical enhancement, satellite enhancements, and IoT and MMTC enhancements. It is also to be noted that some of these requirements could not be addressed in the previous release due to lack of time and was necessary to be the part of Release 18 to fully address the original 5G vision. Next slide, please. Although SA2 kicked off the discussion on Release 18 study items in August 21, the major part of the work has taken place after the Release 18 prioritization exercise that happened in SA94 electronic meeting in December 21. The stage 1 service requirement was completed in December 21. For stage 2 architecture work, 27 study items and work 1 item was approved in December. All 27 study items, as I mentioned before, are now 100% complete. Due to immense workload, stage 2 freeze deadline was moved by 3 months from March 23 to June 23. Also, stage 3 freeze timelines were moved by 3 months to March 24 and ASN and Open API freeze specification freeze deadline was moved to June 2024. Next slide, please. This is a crowded slide, but it gives an overall snapshot and progress on all Release 18 study items going on in SA2 and progress on the normative work. It also provides a link to the study item description that includes detailed objectives, timeline, and dependencies with other working groups. It also has a link to a technical report that captures architectural assumptions, key issues, solutions, and conclusions to those key issues. In the next few slides, I'll talk about some of the Release 18 enhancements in more details on some of the selected topics, but we would not have a time to go through all the status. Next slide, please. XRM is one of the biggest features in Release 18, which aims to provide 5Gs enhancement to support extended reality and media services, with a specific focus on QS policy enhancement, service exposure for XR, and support for multimodality services. The normative work is ongoing and it provides support for PDU set-based QS handling. A PDU set is composed of one or more PDU carrying the payload of one unit of information generated in an application layer. A new QS parameters such as PDU set error rate and PDU set delay budgets were defined. Release 18 also support enhancement for 5Gs exposure for XR media and other enhancements such as policy control enhancements to support multimodality flow, uplink downlink transmission coordination to meet round-trip latency requirements, and policy enhancement for jitter minimization. XRM require more efficient codecs in terms of high throughputs and low latency budget, which in turn require more power consumption and higher reliability. Hence, the enhancement of UE power saving for XR services and trade-off of QAE and power saving requirements was studied as part of Release 18. Next slide, please. Release 17 5G system supports AI/ML training and inference with a 5G core via NWDF for network automation purposes. But there is no support for 5G's transport solution to support device-based application AI/ML training or inference services. So this study aims to provide intelligent transmission support for application AI/ML based services to support the use cases for application layer AI/ML operation. Some Release 18 enhancements include support for network resource utilization monitoring for AI/ML applications. For this, AF uses NWDAF based data analytics for application AI/ML operation. Release 18 also supports 5G information exposure to authorized third party for application layer AI/ML operation, enhancing external parameter provisioning, and 5G enhancement to enable application AI/ML traffic transport. QS and policy enhancement for AI/ML based services was also supported. For this, existing QS monitoring mechanism for URLLC services are being reused. 5G's assistance to federated learning operation is also supported in Release 18. For these enhancements, a new member selection functionality was added that can provide a list of recommended UEs based on parameter contained in the request from an application function. Next slide, please. So this study items aims to support ranging-based services and side-link positioning for commercial, V2X, and public safety use cases for in-coverage, partial coverage, and out-of-coverage scenarios. The focus is to define the procedure for authorization and policy parameter provisioning. Ranging side link discovery and service operation, as well as ranging side link positioning service exposure, is also supported in Release 18. Next slide, please. So vehicle mounted relays is a study item to basically support the operation of basic base station relays, possibly mounted on the vehicles. This uses NR for wireless access toward the UE and wireless self backhaul towards 5G core network. VMR includes mobile base station relay, MBSR configuration, efficient mobility and service continuity, both for moving UEs as well as moving MBSR. Roaming of mobile base station relay as well as location services for UE accessing the mobile base station relay, and control of UE access 5GS via mobile base station relay is also supported in Release 18. Next slide, please. For industrial IoT use cases, Release 16 defined a non-public networks, which is a system which is deployed for non-public use. Release 18 added a support for SNPN with the subscription credentials owned by a separate entity from SNPN, and introduced a broadcast information that SNPN supports separate credentials to support network selection. The Release 18 adds a support of enhanced mobility by enabling support for idle and connected mode mobility between SNPNs without new network selection. It also supports non-3GPP access for SNPN services and support for providing access to a localized services. Next slide, please. Release 16 added a support for time-sensitive communication services that was mainly to support deterministic and/or isochronous communication with high reliability and availability. In Release 16, main focus was integration of IEEE time-sensitive network. Then in Release 17, the 5G system expanded the support of time synchronization and time-sensitive communication for any application. In Release 18 now, we make further enhancement for timing resiliency and URLC to support low latency. Release 18 supports a mechanism for interworking with TSN transport networks, which is shown in the upper figure, in order to support low latency communication and efficient N3 transmission. Release 18 also supports mechanism for application to adapt downstreaming scheduling in order for 5Gs to meet the low latency requirements of 2 milliseconds, and also provide 5G support for 5G timing resiliency requirement as defined by SA1 and other enhancements. Next slide, please. Deterministic networking is standardized by IETF and provides time-sensitive features that guarantees almost zero packet loss rates and bounded latency. Release 18 enabled 3GPP support of DetNet such that mapping is provided between the central DetNet controller entity, which is defined by IETF, and the 5G system. 5G system just acts as a local DetNet node in the router. Release 18 also support 5G's DetNet node reporting to DetNet controller and provisioning of DetNet configuration from DetNet controller to 5Gs. Next slide, please. For satellite-related enhancement, Release 18 has two work going on in parallel. One is continuation of Release 17 work on 5G-C EPC enhancements for satellite access, which includes mobility management and power saving enhancements in presence of discontinuous coverage. Another Release 18 study item aims to further enhancement 5G support of satellites and with a specific focus on backhauling with changing delay, as well as support for UPF deployed in GEO satellites with G-Node B on the ground. Next slide, please. Service function chaining aims to support service function chaining in 5G core network with the enhancement focusing on traffic steering policy and northbound APIs for allowing application function to request network capability exposure functionality. In Release 18, SFC is supported over N6 LAN, and an application function may request steering of user plane traffic to a pre-configured chain of service functions on N6 LAN. A service function chain is identified by an SFC ID, which is included in the application function request sent to the 5G core network. The AF request may optionally include a metadata information that is transparently passed to the UPF and provided to the UPF or the N6 LAN. Next slide, please. Personal IoT network provides a local connectivity between the pin elements. So the pin elements are the UE and or the non-3GPP devices. These features aim to support personal IoT networks with the requirements captured in 3GPP as stage 1 requirements, which are 22.261. So this includes how we do a pin element discovery, the pin elements capability discoveries, elements availability and reachability, and management aspects related to the pin elements. Next slide, please. So this slide includes the other item that was most continuation from the previous releases. So as you can see, most of them are labeled as phase 2 or phase 3. So these are the items for which the work could not be finished in the previous releases, and it continued in the release 18. Since we do not have time to go through them in detail, the link on the previous slide, which provides a technical report where you can go into more details on the key issues and the conclusion achieved as part of these studies. Next slide, please. For release 19, SA1 is working on many study items for stage 1 use cases and service requirements. SA1 plans 80% completion of normative work by September and 100% completion by December. Stage 1 freeze deadline has been tentatively agreed to be December of 2023. But all the release 19 timelines are expected to be discussed and agreed at the March plenary meetings. For release 19 content definition and approval, SA plans to hold a workshop in June of 2023. Like as Vanshi mentioned, this is recently been agreed to be in Taiwan. This will be followed by a two-step approval process. For SA1, the first release 19 content will be approved in September 2023, and the final package would be approved in December along with RAN. The reason for this two-step approval process is to allow SA2 to be able to work on some release 19 projects in Q4 this year. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of the ongoing release 19 studies items in SA1. They can be broadly categorized into 3 categories. One is related to the new features, other are enhancements, and then the third one can be categorized as vertical and non-terrestrial network focused. FS sensing is a study that considered enhancing the 5G system to provide integrated communication and sensing services addressing different target vertical applications. For example, autonomous assisted driving, aviation or UAV intrusion detection, 3D map reconstruction, smart city factories, health and sleep monitoring at home, smart homes, and maritime sectors. Ambient IoT, which Avansi also mentioned, is a study to support ambient power-enabled Internet of Things. The energy provided through the harvesting of radio waves, light, motion, heat, and other power sources that can be suitable. FS Metaverse is a study that considers 5G system support to enable shared interactive user experience of content and services, which can be accessed locally or remotely, but with a particular emphasis on providing services involving XR media for multiple users in the same location. FS Energy Serving is a study that aims at analyzing different scenarios and generating requirements on how to deliver service with energy efficiency as service criteria. It is basically focusing on the support of policy handling energy efficiency as part of subscription. It is to be noted that this is different to the previous studies on energy efficiency, where the focus was to finding a solution on energy efficiency, such as a low power consumption and reduced signaling. But this mainly focuses on defining is energy efficiency as a service criteria. Then there is also a project on dual steering, like similar to what is done in the previous releases for ATIS, but the focus here is to have a upper layer steering, split and switching of UE traffic across two 3GPP access links, while the previous study focused between 3GPP and non-3GPP access. Then also a study on AI/ML phase 2, and this study is targeting to let 5G system support distributed learning inference while leveraging the 5G D2D on demand. Then NetShare investigates the use cases and potential new requirements related to deployment scenario, in particular when there is no direct interconnection between the shared NG-RAN and participating operators' core network. And there is also a study on this SOBOT. This study is to aim at collecting various existing stage 1 features that are relevant to support group of service robots and further identifying the use cases and aspects related to efficient communication and operation of these group of service robots. And in addition to that, there is this vertical focus study on the satellite access as well as UAV phase 3, which is the work for which is also ongoing in release 18. And then there are projects related to railway support of railway as a smart station services. Next slide, please. So this slide just gives an overall snapshot and progress on all release 19 study items in SA1. Similar to the SA2 release 18, it provides links to the study item descriptions that includes the detailed objectives, timelines, and dependencies. Then there is a links to technical reports for all the study items, and these technical reports captures the use cases and the potential stage 1 service requirements in detail. So I think this concludes my presentation, and with this I'm going to hand over back to Ian. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for those excellent presentations. I'm always amazed at the amount of detail both of you managed to retain on all these different work items. I mean, I think we're really seeing the diversity of the work that 3GPP is doing now and the many different use cases and enhancements that are being added into the 5G system. And I think it's an amazing credit to all the participants in 3GPP that so much work has been undertaken and is being delivered, particularly much of it being done in e-meetings without face-to-face work. Well, thank you again for those presentations. For those of you who haven't asked questions but wish to do so, please put your questions in the question box on the window. I see quite a few interesting questions already coming up. So let me perhaps raise some of those questions and we can put them to the panelists. So the first question that I'd like to ask, I think, is probably primarily for Wanshi, which is for PC5 side links. This is direct mobile to mobile communication. Is there any way for operators to monetize its use? So I guess more broadly, maybe this is what is the use case for PC5 side-link, and how does it relate to business models?
I mean, thank you for the question. Thank you, Ian. I'm not in a position to say how the operator can monetize the use case. I just want to say that I do believe that if you look at all the resources being allocated to PC5, we have two modes. One is more like a network controlled. Another one is where the network configure some resources, and the PC5 users will try to do some sensing and try to compete for the resources. The resources will be managed by the operators, and they'll be able to control how resources being allocated. So that's one thing. And then if you look at the use cases for the Starlink, originally is triggered by public safety use cases, and later on we also added this so-called network controlled interactive services. So on the service side, I also believe there's a lot of potential for it to be used. To sum up, I do believe that there's a lot of knobs we already have that ready. It's just a matter of how this can be played out in the commercial deployments.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Puneet, do you want to add anything to that?
No, thank you, Ian. I think Vanshi covered it pretty much. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question here on release 19 dates. So I don't know which of you wants to tackle that, but what's the plan for when 3GPP will fix the release 19 dates with more certainty? Will that be after the June workshops, or will that be later in the year?
So maybe I can start, and then Vanshi can talk from the RAN perspective. So from the SA perspective, the expectation is that the release 19 dates would be discussed in March. And there has been an agreed that the dates would be decided no later than the June plenary. And the reason we wanted to make an early decision on the timeline is to basically allow the content discussions to start. So basically we want to have a timeline decided first, and then basically move on to the content discussion. And that's why basically the attempt would be to finalize the timelines hopefully by March plenary. And that is for RAN, SA, RAN, maybe Vanshi, you can comment on the RAN side.
Yeah, Puneet pretty much summarized what I'm about to say. I mean, from RAN, of course, we can wait a little bit longer, but after coordination with TSG tiers, we agree that it's better for us to make a joint decision, and hopefully this thing can be made in March. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So another question. I'm going to jump all over the map on the questions, so apologies for this. Ambient IoT, I think that's one of the more unusual items in this presentation. What's the kind of breakthrough technologies from your point of view that's going to enable ambient IoT, given the very low power consumption requirements for that application?
Yeah, maybe I can take it. So this is a study that we would like to see. I mean, this. As I mentioned earlier, what care of the study, I think SA side already had some study on this, and on RAN side, we started study in December, try to look at the different use cases, these deployments are all different things. And technology also gonna have some high-level discussion. At this point, it's hard to predict what are the breakthrough technologies, something to be further studied on the working group level. But as you look at these devices, and there are different types. There's something called you may not have any kind of active component for you to do the signal generation. You may just do backscatter transmissions with or without energy storage. But you may also have some active components for you to regenerate the signals to have the so-called active IoT. So there are different types, and these different types are still being studied. So eventually, it's also a question of what are the types that should be further studied at the working group level, and on which, of course, you're going to have a different technology. Depends on what kind of type device we're talking about. So yeah, so that essentially it's too early to tell, but it's something to be further seen.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe I can just add on that, right? So in SA1, as I mentioned, that there is a study ongoing on this ambient power enabled Internet of Things. And the study is basically looking into the various use cases and identifying the potential service requirements, which includes security aspects and network selection, access control, mobility and identification management, charging and everything. And also looking at the study traffic scenarios and device constraint and identifying the potential performance requirements and the KPIs. So far it has looked into the several use cases like an ambient IoT for automated warehousing, where the motivation is to automate warehousing with their communication devices, and ambient IoT devices for accurate and rapid inventory and efficient management of storage information. As well as there are use cases related to ambient IoT devices in substation in the smart grids. So what I would suggest is basically taking a look at the TR for this, which has captured the potential requirements, and it talks about the scenarios where how much is the maximum allowed end-to-end latency, device power consumptions, what is the service bit rate and message size, device density, and there is a quite lot of information that has been basically captured in the TR 22.840. So I encourage basically taking a look at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's good to have a reference for people to look at. Thank you. So I see a couple of questions that are related to each other on network aspects of XR or XRM, depending on which version you prefer. So I mean, I guess they're both sort of coming from different angles. One is saying, are the new network functions being introduced for XR? And the other is saying, will XR use IMS? So maybe, Puneet, you might comment on how XR fits into the IMS architecture, if it does, and how the network will treat XR from the 3GPP standard point of view.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. So for the XR enhancements, which we talked today, does not require basically an IMS system as in mandatory, so these basically enhancements are provided in the 5G system, and basically it does not need an IMS system just to operate on these enhancements. Okay, so I think this, sorry, I forgot, what was the other part of the question?
Well, the other question was that, are there any new network functions being introduced for XR?
Okay. So are there new network functions to be introduced? I'm not sure. I mean, I have to look into the details of that, So I think what has happened is basically so far we have concluded on the study items, and we are moving towards the normative phase. And as part of the normative phase, we will see whether the existing existing network function can be enhanced to add those functionalities. But I see that to my recollection, there is no new network functions which has been added for XRM so far. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I guess this might also be for you, Puneet. A question on TSN and time-sensitive networking and DECnet. Are they different, and is there any dependency in either direction between those two functions? Could you explain the difference there?
So, I mean, from overall functionality is the same, but one is TSN is defined by IEEE, while the DECnet is defined by ITF. And the TSN is level 2, while the DECnet is level 3.
Okay, that's nice and succinct. Thank you. And I think this probably is a question for Wanshi, but you might want to comment on it as well, Puneet. So are there any functions in the 3GPP standards for RAN virtualization, like Open RAN?
Yeah, so this good question. This Open RAN is always an interesting topic. You know that in the beginning of 5G, we already had talking about different options, but overall, 5G we have very limited how to say we do have virtualization, but it is something like Open RAN. That part is not totally clear to me. But if you talk about Open RAN itself, then we don't have much for Open RAN in 5G. But maybe I don't quite understand the question as well. So are we talking about the RAN virtualization like Open RAN or talk about Open RAN?
Yeah, I mean, we don't. I can only really give you the sentence, which was what I just read out. So I can't give you any more context to that. But okay, hopefully that gives people a bit of a starting point.
Right.
I think we probably have time for one or two more questions. So I see one question from an old friend of 3GPP, which is, so I'll ask that one. From 5G or next-G perspective, what does a vehicle mean with side link enhancement context? Is that a moving thing on a public road? Question mark. And that's from Kidong Lee.
So maybe I can answer. So
yeah, go ahead.
I think maybe this is related to VMR, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so basically in that case that it is correct that it could be a moving vehicle, because the mobile station based relay can be actually a moving one. So the answer is yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So then maybe have, I see a lot of new questions coming in. We'll try and give written answers to questions where we can after the event. We're not going to get through them all today. I have one very short question that maybe you could just answer in a sentence, each of you. What's your view on when 3GPP might start work on 6G, which a release or a date?
That's a good question. I mean, so far we haven't spent any time talking about 6G in CPU yet. So everything is still up in the air. But from all the discussions so far, RISC 19 most likely will be dedicated to 5G Advanced. But of course, there's still an open question of whether there'll be some kind of early discussion or even some early requirement study in parallel with RISC 19. That's something to be seen. Of course, when I say this from RAM perspective, I do believe SI1 might be different. Component can comment later. But then likely RISC 20 could be the first release for 6G. But of course, in that case, we probably start with study first. But of course, there's also a question of whether RISC 20 will also have further evolution for 5G Advanced, and that's something else to be seen. But it's still open. But the short answer is very likely that something will be discussed or even started in RISC 20, and then of course will be followed by some work item in later releases. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add on that, yeah, I fully agree what Wanshi mentioned. Like release 19 is expected to be dedicated to 5G Advanced. And again, this is nothing been decided in 3GPP, but based on the discussion, what we see is that release 20 may be a first release to basically start some study on 6G. Now, SA1, which is a service requirements working group, kind of proceeds any other working group by one release cycle. Like what you see today is they are already been working on release 19. So if any studies on the 6G service requirements is undertaken in release 20, then SA1 would be kind of a 1 year cycle ahead than other working group. So that is what the current thinking is, but again, there is nothing that has been yet decided in 3GPP.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we have to move to the end of the webinar today, so we go to the next slide, please. Thanks again to our excellent speakers. Really amazing knowledge base we have here. Thanks to the participants for the many excellent questions. Apologies we couldn't cover them all, but we will try and get back to many of them in writing. And lastly, thanks very much to the ATIS coordinators and marketing team for making all the arrangements to bring this together today. So with that said, I wish you all a good day and look forward to speaking with many of you again soon. Thank you very much.